Hi, I'm Nate Adams, CEO and co-founder of HVAC 2.0. And in this video, I want to talk about sweet spot thinking, because this is a critical idea to how the thought processes within HVAC 2.0 work, because you're going to see this type of thinking again and again and again. So I'm actually going to do a whole series of videos using the same curve that you're seeing here, but then applying it to different subjects, because the same thinking is helpful on a whole bunch of different fronts. So let's get started. So to begin, I just want to touch on HVAC 2.0 principles. You're going to see these around. They may change slightly in order or something like that, but these are a bunch of the things that really underpin 2.0. So to begin, the process is sacred. If you ever see hashtag TPIS, that's what it means. You have to stay on process. That's staying in your lane. It's important to be the guide, not the hero. Guides get paid, heroes don't. Responsibly avoid responsibility. You're going to hear that again and again. What we're talking about today, which is finding the sweet spot in whatever it is that you're working on right now. Do no harm is important. So we are basically doctors for houses, and so that is the Hippocratic oath for working with clients in their houses. Represent HVAC 2.0 well to others whenever you are out in social media or public or whatever, and give more than you take. This is very important. It's the only way this works, and the only way that the movement grows is if you are constantly giving back to other people that are coming up behind you. So very critical. That's a big ask. If you fail at that, we're very likely to kick you out. So important to note. All right, let's talk about sweet spots. So this is a graphic that we came up with back in 2015. So this is now 6 years old. So this is what most people think happens. So we're thinking about this more from a building performance perspective than just HVAC, but it's going to apply to both. So basically, people think when you do a few things, big things happen. So over here, we have benefits or results, so good things happening. And over here, we have improvements, which is money we spend or stuff that we do. And what most people think is the first couple things you do will make a huge difference, and then anything beyond that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And that's it's what we call low-hanging fruit thinking. And I despise the phrase low-hanging fruits, because it is almost surely going to lead you on the path to hell, which we're going to see in a second. So here's what reality looks like. Reality is this S-curve. So it's not this kind of easy curve that goes up and then goes out. Reality, when you're trying to solve complex problems, looks like this S-curve. So the first few things you do don't hardly move the needle at all. And then things start to happen fast. And then at some point, you taper off and it stops being almost vertical and starts becoming horizontal again. So good results happen, but only after you go far enough. So here's what happens from this. Most jobs, because people are thinking that this red line is happening when in reality the blue line is what's going on. Most people land in what we call the Gulf of Disappointment, and most jobs live here. On the other hand, if you go far enough, you get into what we call the Sea of Success. And so that requires figuring out what it's going to take to actually make a real difference in solving whatever problem is that you're coming up against. So this is how we did our Energy Smart Home Performance practice. So that's where this came out of. This is from our Cleveland practice. So we would give people through what we now call the comprehensive planning process. This is the advanced path. And you're not going to be doing many of these, probably 3%, something like that. So they'll happen, but they're not going to happen super often. And what we do is give people very carefully thought out packages of things to do. And we would give them something that was a budget. So it could be somewhere in this orange range, and really it could go all the way up. So, I mean, if somebody gives you a good budget, all kinds of good things can happen. But sometimes they don't. And so when we talk about odds of success, if you're down in this low range, things probably aren't going to change, not in the way that you're hoping. Then we would give them a second package, which we call the sweet spot package. This is what we think it takes to solve the problems that you have with reasonably high likelihood. And then we would give them a third package, which is complete. This is basically everything we can think of within reason. So could we do more? Yeah, but why? And so you end up with this curve and then 3 different ways to solve problems, or at least attempt to solve problems. So this is the thinking that led to what we're going to dive into next. And I should note, all of this is born from real experience. So if you go to EnergySmartOhio.com and you click case studies, you can go read ad nauseum about these projects and how we did and what they look like. So I highly recommend, if this is something that interests you, seeing the advanced projects, go there and just see what they look like. I spent a lot of time putting those together. So this is a little bit different way to look at the same S-curve. So rather than having results, I put odds of results over here. And what we want to do is get over 80%. So again, think like doctors. HVAC 2.0 turns you into a doctor for houses, and it's a very pragmatic doctor. So I don't think anybody wants to go spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 with less than 80% odds of success. So to me, that's the minimum that you want to get people to. And coming out of a comfort consult, that's realistically the highest that you're probably going to be able to get to. Because a comfort consult, as we'll get to in a subsequent video, it collects a fair amount of data, but it doesn't collect enough data to be absolutely certain of what's going to happen next. So 80% is about as good as you're going to get out of the comfort consult. And then the CPP, the comprehensive planning process, should get you over 90. So you'll be fairly sure at that point. And we'll help teach you how to do this. It sounds like rocket science. It's not what you do every day. I mean, again, being a service tech is kind of awe-inspiring to me because you have to know so many things about so many different systems. So if you can figure that out, you're going to figure this out too. We will walk you through it step by step. But back to the sweet spot idea. So same thing. What you're looking for, you don't want to hit this first inflection point. That's where everybody's aiming at low-hanging fruit. And that is the almost sure path to failure. What you really want to do is do your best to get to the second inflection point where spending more money doesn't deliver substantially better results. So this is the best use of resources. Problem is, this varies by house, this varies by owner, and this varies by what their goals are, and also budget. So there's all of these things that go into it. So if you owned my house, or I owned yours, the odds are our solution packages would be different because we have different preferences and we have different budgets. So important to note, even though the house is the same, the odds are the work would look different. And here's what this translates to as far as contracting that you normally see. So this first brown section is traditional contracting. So it's regular HVAC. And this graphic, you can see it was made back when we called the program Home Performance 2.0. Now it's HVAC 2.0. But this gets you into this part of the curve, which is where you want to be. So this is the ideal thing to figure out where to do. Hopefully you can get to the sweet spot. Meanwhile, this curve, you want to picture it continuing way out here. You could do something wild, so we tend to pick on Passive House. Passive House is a very, very difficult to hit German standard. It's a great standard, all kinds of good stuff behind it, but it is not practical for most U.S. homes, in large part because we pay about half for energy, what Europe does where it was developed. But getting out here into the flat, it doesn't really matter anymore. You're spending money pretty much for the sake of spending money. So you want to try and figure out where's the sweet spot. Now I want to introduce a different way of thinking. So I want to thank Robert Brearley for bringing this idea to my attention. So it's called a Sternberg triarchic theory. So pretty nerdy. But what I like about it is he talks about 3 different types of intelligence and how we need to use all 3 simultaneously to do really good things. So there's analytical intelligence, that's academic problem solving and computation. So that's basically being really nerdy. Then there's practical intelligence, street smarts and common sense. I really group mechanical ability into this as well. You can just see something and understand what needs to happen for it to be fixed. And then there's creative intelligence, which really kind of mixes analytical and practical. And that's where you're being imaginative and you're doing innovative problem solving. So you're going beyond what the normal types of problem solving are. And this is what HVAC 2.0 is built to help you do. In fact, let's look at what Brearley put together. So you can see here's the practical intelligence, here's creative, and here's analytical. And then you'll notice budget, goals, and house needs here. So that's going to happen again and again. You're going to be seeing those 3 things. And then down here, so what you do every day, heating and cooling, super practical. HVAC 2.0 is in the middle, and home performance is super analytical. And to really fix houses and do it predictably and profitably, you need to ride the middle somewhere. So this is the sweet spot. So let's look at what a couple of aspects of this are. So if you're heating and cooling, every tech that I know is fundamentally a good mechanic. So you can get in, you can fix stuff fast, you can get out. Very important. On the service side, you got to do that. It needs a new capacitor, get it changed, get moving. It tends to be small picture though, so you're focused on the box. You're not focused on the entire house. So if you want to solve big problems, you have to think about the entire building at the same time. Then heating and cooling, it tends to tell people what to do. I mean, even if it's the capacitor's bad, you got to change the capacitor. You're telling them what to do. I view it as a pragmatic hero way of being. So I get it too. The thrill of coming to something that other people can't fix, figuring out how to fix it, and then fixing it, and then getting paid makes you feel like a hero. That's good. And it's very pragmatic. It tends to sell jobs that are smaller with traditional thinking, though. All right, let's apply these same thoughts to HVAC 2.0. So rather than a mechanic, it's more of an engineer, but it's a cross between a mechanic and an engineer. It's very much a hybrid. This is made to fix hard problems. It will fix easy problems too, but it'll fix the really hard ones, and nobody else can do that. It tends to be big picture because you're thinking about the entire building at the same time. It offers options to clients, so you aren't telling them what to do. You're educating them, and you're offering them options, and you're telling them what the pros and cons and the prices are. So they are making choices which way to go. Rather than a pragmatic hero, now you're an empathetic guide. So you are listening to them, and you are guiding them. So you are no longer Luke Skywalker, you are Obi-Wan. That's where we want to be. And this tends to sell very large jobs. Watching the groups, you're going to see people talking about these big jobs they're selling. That naturally comes out of this process. Then you have home performance. This is where I came from. So I'm making fun of my former self here. Home performance, it tends to be hyper nerdery. So it's perfection. It's going way beyond what you'd normally see. And the problem is it ends up fixing nothing. And like I said before, case studies are really important. So if you see someone and you're like, wow, look how good they are at diagnosing something, ask them for the case study of the fixed house. If they don't have those, they don't matter. Having a really good treatment plan that doesn't get followed and a dead patient, it's a bad thing. That is getting in the way of progress. So we need things to actually get fixed and people to make money before any of this actually matters, which is where we've come to. Home performance tends to be heavy on what I call over-complexification. So that is a word I made up, and it defines itself. Home performance tends to confuse the heck out of homeowners. Ask me how I know. Keep it simple. tends to make people into egotistical heroes. Here I am to save the day. I can make your life better. I can fix everything. What do you mean you want me out of your house? And that's what ends up happening. This doesn't sell jobs. So home performance, I'm thankful that we have the scientific knowledge there. It's really critical. But the scientific knowledge does not sell jobs. And if they don't sell, they don't execute, and nothing gets fixed and nobody makes money. So all of these things have to work together. And so that's where 2.0, it really is the creative side of things. So take your practical. You'll need to learn a little analytical, but be very careful. Analytical, being the hero, is really tempting. Don't get sucked in. So there will be other videos on how not to get sucked in and why not to get sucked in. Be very, very careful of this space. I come from here. There be dragons. This will kill your business. So be very careful. All right. So taking that same chart and looking at the sweet spot. So this is updating it so that it follows Brearley's idea there. So heating and cooling is kind of what you're used to doing. And sometimes you can fix stuff, absolutely. But the complex stuff, you really need to know more. HVAC 2.0 is meant to ride the middle so that you can get to the sweet spot, and home performance work is way off to the side. It ends up, nobody buys anything, and everybody just spends much time. So, and like I mentioned earlier, if someone sounds impressive, you can be a really good diagnostician. I personally am just okay. I'm about a B+ energy auditor. There are lots and lots of people that are better than me. But that doesn't necessarily matter, because if you hit a house hard enough because the client sees the value and pays to do it, the house gets fixed. And even if you didn't fully diagnose something, that problem gets solved as just a natural part of doing the work. But you have to hit the house hard enough, which we'll talk about another time. So like I said, unexecuted treatment plans and dead patients, they don't matter. So whoever you see that's like, ooh, look at all the stuff they're doing, how impressive they are, let's see their case studies. If they don't have them, ignore them. They don't matter. So 2.0, what we have found to be able to thread the needle between home performance and HVAC, it's really narrow. So like I said earlier, do not run headlong without control down this path, or you will fall off to your death. Be very careful. Don't turn your business into a dumpster fire. If you do, it wasn't me. I told you not to. So go slow. We have this process set up just to keep you on that narrow path. And it's not necessarily hard. It just requires a little bit of discipline. And the software is there basically to give you that discipline, to keep you going step by step down that path and not skipping steps. And so if we can keep those steps small, we can keep you on that narrow path and let you hit the sweet spot. So what we're talking about here is the sweet spot. This is what the sweet spot looks like. But it's not easy to hit. There's a reason it's taken the better part of a decade to come up with. This is not a simple thing to solve. So can you do it without us? Yeah, probably. But you might fail, or your results are unlikely to be as good. So that's the end of the first video here. Sweet spot thinking is really critical. So you want to understand, how do you get to that second inflection point where going further doesn't deliver substantially more benefits. So start thinking about that and looking for that. And you probably do a lot of this already, but you want to take that same thinking and apply it to other places in your work and in your life. So I hope this was helpful. Again, I'm Nate Adams, and I will see you next time.